My name is Mia, and I'm 27 years old. After graduating from vocational school, I worked in medical administration. It was a busy but fulfilling workplace, and I felt a sense of satisfaction. However, I quit my job when I got married because my husband John wanted me to focus on our home. I'm not the type of person to stick to a specific career, so I had no doubts about adapting to whatever was asked of me. I met John through a friend, and after a year of dating, we got married. At that time, he had already lost his father to illness and was living with his mother. It'll be a big help. Mia, my mother, I worry about her being all alone. It's understandable. We can't leave your mother alone, I replied shortly. After his father's passing, I was informed that his mother had fallen ill. Since then, she had been mostly bettered, and John took care of most of the housework. My mother-in-law warmly welcomed me and requested that I handle the household tasks and let John handle the outside work. "And please take over the house for me," she said. "Yes, mother-in-law. I look forward to working with you," I responded. I had no complaints about my relationship with my mother-in-law. After all, she was better than due to illness, and I was in a dominant position, taking control over everything. The real problem lay in my relationship with John. As soon as we got married and settled into family life, he became distant. "Hey, how about we go for a drive on our next day off? Your mother seems to be doing well, and I think half a day won't be a problem." I said, "Sorry, I'm tired, and I want to rest properly that day." He replied, "Oh, I see. I'm sorry." I said I felt disappointed. John began showing signs of being bothered by our interactions. At first, I thought it was due to his busy work, so I didn't worry too much. But as the days passed, he started avoiding me more often, and even our intimate moments together were affected. I would prepare, thinking it was the right day, only to be turned down. "Please be a bit more cooperative. I want to have a child as soon as possible," I pleaded. "I understand how you feel, and I want that too. But sorry, let's try next time," he responded. Approaching my 30s, I felt the pressure to start a family. My mother-in-law also urged me to have a child, as she wanted to see her grandson. It was hard not to be able to fulfill her wishes. And then, while we were unable to give her a grandchild, my mother-in-law passed away. From that point on, John's attitude toward me became colder and colder. "Welcome home. I made your favorite cream stew for dinner," I greeted him. "John, hey, are you listening? Oh, do you want to take your bath? First, get it. I'll be waiting," I said. Trying to engage him in conversation, John had become almost silent at home. No matter how hard I tried to involve him, it was futile. He completely ignored me. I thought it was probably due to the shock of losing his mother, and I naturally attributed his behavior to that. Until John recovered from this emotional damage, I decided to support him faithfully as his wife. However, no matter how many days passed, John remained disinterested in me. "John, how have you been feeling recently? Are you sleeping well?" I asked, attempting to open a discussion about our future. "I want to discuss something about our child. I'm thinking about getting a fertility test. What do you think?" I continued, hoping to catch his attention. "Hey, John, his health, his feelings, our child, our future." I tried to engage John's interest by changing the topic in various ways, but sadly, every attempt ended in failure. "John, please say something. Have I done something to upset you? If there's something you don't like or want me to change, please tell me, John," I earnestly pleaded. But despite my sincere pleas, John didn't lend an ear. His continued ignorance towards me persisted for an entire month. My husband was inexplicably cold. Feeling desperate, I sought advice from my old friend Claire. Claire works for a cosmetics company and is known for her expertise and wide circle of friends. Whenever I faced a problem, whether it was about studies, love, or personal worries, I would always seek Claire's opinion. After hearing my story in detail, Claire solemnly nodded. "That's unusual. A couple in their 3rd year of marriage lives in the same house, with the husband ignoring the wife. That's not normal. You haven't done anything wrong, have you, Jessica?" "No, I haven't. That's why I don't understand why he's become so cold," I replied, feeling utterly distressed. Claire promised to fully help me. Little did I know Claire had picked up on something. It's his fault if you've done nothing wrong. Jessica, he must be hiding something shady. Let's verify it by eavesdropping on surveillance tailings using all possible means. Claire suggested it nervously. I asked, is it okay to do something like that? Absolutely. It's worse to ignore your spouse and keep secrets when you're married, she assured me later. Following Claire's suggestion, I installed small eavesdropping devices and cameras in our home. I felt guilty, but my desire to uncover his secret was overpowering. Of course, John continued to ignore me during this time. Hey, are you listening? I would attempt to engage him in conversation, but it was all in vain. A few days later, my phone rang. It was John calling. Hello, where the hell are you? What are you trying to pull? Leaving the house for a week. Why don't you ask yourself why I'm doing this? What are you talking about? Speak clearly. I don't understand. I responded with anger and frustration bubbling within me. How dare he tell me to speak clearly when he's been ignoring me all this time? Prompted by Claire's investigation, I discovered a shocking truth. Unable to contain my rage at what I had found out, I left our home and sought refuge at Claire's house. On the 7th day of my stay there, I finally received a call from John. If you have something to say to me, then you should say it to my face loud and clear. He suggested fine with me as long as you promise not to ignore what I have to say. I replied, determined. The anger I felt the moment I discovered the results of my investigation still burned in my chest. The weight of his sins trampling on my dedication was heavy. John had to face a fitting punishment for his actions. I set a date and location, ending the call swiftly before he responded. Later, I invited John to a table in a local cafe. He must have slipped out during work as he was still in his business suit. There was no need to beat around the bush. I laid out the evidence I had collected on the table. What is this? Hey, wait. Stop it. Jessica, don't lay out these things. He protested. If you don't like it, why don't you pick them up yourself? It doesn't matter, right? I can print out as many as I want. When did you take these photos? I challenged, and the table was filled with incriminating photos. Shots of John with his mistress walking in the downtown area, with their arms folded, scenes of them entering a hotel together. The woman in all the photos was the same person, and her name was Mary. As I had discovered during my investigation, I also have audio data. Would you like to listen to it right here? I tapped the screen on my smartphone and immediately a conversation between John and Mary started streaming. Hey John, when is our housemate planning on leaving? She'll be gone soon. She's losing her patience and will probably suggest a divorce. I wish he would just blow up at us and say, stop ignoring me. That would be easiest for me. Mary's voice played through the speakers. This is such a long-term scheme. Well, that's just like you, John, isn't it? Mary's voice continued when I cut off the audio. John seemed frustrated, realizing we had eavesdropped on their conversation. I wondered what kind of look he was giving to his own life. John caught red-handed cheating and seemed on the verge of lashing out at any moment. John, so you needed someone to take care of your mother, right? That's why you married me. And now that your mother has passed away, I'm no longer needed. Your real intention was always to be with Mary, but she had no intention of taking care of her mother-in-law, so I, who had no objections to caregiving, was chosen for the role. It seems like anyone who could take on this bothersome duty would do it for you. After your mother's passing, the housemaid was no longer needed. It was all part of your plan to make life unpleasant and trigger a divorce. What a petty, mean, and unreasonable way to behave. It disrespects the sanctity of marriage. The only saving grace is that we don't have children. And about children, you knew, didn't you? You never planned on having them because you knew we would be separated. You did want to pay child support after the divorce. It's clear that you had all of this planned from the beginning. Upon pointing this out, John let out a heavy sigh. Most of what you say is true. I married you intending to leave you from the start. He confessed without remorse. You're the worst. What do you think my life is? I exclaimed, my bad. That said, it does save me a lot of trouble. Let's get divorced. John proposed coldly, and of course I responded, ready to end this miserable charade. But before that, someone else, John's words were interrupted as two women arrived just in time. "Sorry to keep you waiting," they said simultaneously. "John, so that means you're the housemate." "I'm not a housemate anyway." "Thank you, Claire." I expressed my gratitude. "I thought you were looking for new cosmetics to review," Claire said. "I'm sorry. That was a lie. What I was actually looking for was my best friend's husband's mistress, or in other words, you, Mary," Clary explained as I seated Mary next to John. I showed her the same evidence photos of their affair. Mary's reaction was like that of a child caught red-handed and in mischief. She didn't seem to grasp the severity of the situation fully. But it didn't matter. Whatever her attitude, my course of action remained the same. "I'm going to demand compensation from both of you," I declared. "What are you saying? Why should I have to pay compensation? I've done nothing wrong. Have I done something to trouble you?" Mary protested, trying to deflect responsibility. "Do you really mean that I've confirmed that Mary herself is married? Does she not find it troubling that her own husband is involved with another woman?" I confronted her. "She's the daughter of a wealthy family, but she seems completely detached from reality. Are you aware that John was married when you entered into a relationship with him?" I continued. "Well, yes," but Mary stuttered, unable to come up with a valid defense. "That's already over the line adultery. That's why you're being demanded compensation. Do you understand?" I asserted that, firmly persuading Mary was a chore. She eventually slumped onto the table, crying and wailing that her dad would definitely scold her. I wondered if she meant her husband. I thought about informing her that I would be sending a certified letter in the near future, but decided against it. Explaining what a certified letter was would be the first step, and she seemed too overwhelmed already. While I was dealing with Mary, John remained silent, wearing a solemn look on his face, perhaps finally realizing the consequences of his actions. "John, please sign these two documents. They are the divorce agreement and divorce petition. The compensation amount is set at $30,000. You might think it's too much, but don't judge the extent of my mental distress." John closed his mouth. Finally understanding the gravity of the situation, the restaurant was now filled with Mary's sniffling. Subsequently, my divorce from John went through without any problems, and I confirmed that the compensation and asset distribution were transferred into the specified bank account in one lump sum. I decided to use that money to move into a slightly more expensive apartment. After that, I lived happily and content for some time, and life continued. This is the end of the story, guys. Always remember, if the end is well, everything is well. Peace.